Section E, getting feedback toward revision.
After you got a draft, then you can meditate on what you've done. You can look around and figure out where you've gone with your writing.
Now is the time to be more critical of what you've written. You want to read what you wrote and ask yourself, what in the world was I thinking when I wrote that? We'll call writing at this stage considered writing.
Considered writing is a bit more purposeful and controlled than either free writing or exploratory writing. You want to use the ideas you came up with in free writing and exploratory writing to begin to bring your paper to maturity and out of that awkward acne stage. You need to think about the assumptions that underlie your writing. Think about how someone else would look at your paper.
A good way to do all these things is to get some feedback from a classmate, a teacher, or someone at the writing center of your school. Getting feedback simply means having someone else respond to particular parts of your paper.
Feedback? Feedback? I love feedback. What do you think of my eyes? That's a beautiful shade of yellow your head is. Oh, thank you ever so much. You must tell me, how does your head stay so green? I rub broccoli all over it, all day long.
Now, many English composition classes require that you get feedback at certain times. They may require you to get some feedback from people in your class or from your teacher, but very few other college courses require you to get feedback on your assignments. It's all up to you to do that. So for the next few minutes, we're going to look at why you should get feedback and how to get good feedback for your papers. Feedback is exactly what you need after you've got a draft in hand.
As writers, we need to find out what's going on with our readers as they read our stuff. Remember, we want our readers to think and feel what we want them to, when we want them to. As we said earlier, one of the reasons we write is to manipulate our audience in some way.
It would help us to hook up little cameras into our readers and see all the thoughts, images, feelings, and impulses that occur as they read our writing. That way we would know if we had them right where we want them.
So, some of what you're looking for from your readers is just their initial reactions to your writing, but you also want specific feedback on particular aspects of your writing. So how do you get this kind of feedback?
Psychic phone calls?
Nope. You get good feedback from others by asking good questions. If you just ask your reader, what do you think of my draft, you're likely to get a response like this.
Well, it's pretty good. It's fine. It's got, stuff, words in it. It's typed.
And you don't want a response like that because it doesn't help you at all. So when you take your paper to someone to read, you need to have a list of questions you have about it prepared. That way, they'll know what to look for when they're reading your paper and can give specific feedback.
I wish I had some feedback.
Your haircut repulses me.
Is it really that bad?
Now, what kinds of question you ask your reader depends upon the paper, the reader, and what stage of the writing process you're at. Before we look at Nathan's list of questions for his reader, we need to say one more thing about getting feedback. It's important to pick the right person to read your paper.
So that cowboy who works at the barbecue house probably isn't your best bet.
You want to pick someone who would be a good critic of what you're writing about. It might be really easy for Nathan to pick his parents, but they wouldn't be as thoughtful observers of high school life as someone his own age would be.
Since this is just his first draft, he's going to focus on larger issues in his paper. Remember, you work on large matters like your thesis statement, organization, and world peace early in the writing process. You save the smaller stuff, like sentence structure, language, grammar, and cleaning out the cat litter box for the end of the writing process. Here are the questions Nathan came up with.
Are the ideas I have effectively arranged and expressed? Do I stick to my thesis throughout the paper? Is the paper easy to follow? Are the main ideas developed and supported with proper details? Does my paper fit the intended audience? And does the paper complement my agile mind and manly physique?
Nathan takes his paper and his list of questions to Sam in his class.
So what do you think of Nathan?
Oh, Nathan's a cutie, yeah.
Let's look at some of the comments Sam had about Nathan's paper. Remember, the paper she has commented on is paper number 1 of your insert cards. Changes made to this paper will be in paper number 2.
Her first comment is about the opening paragraph. Right now the opening reads, groups. They're everywhere. You see them on the street and in people's houses. Separation through grouping manifests itself in countless places, but it seems as though high school is the place where cliques and groups are most common. Sam's marked that the opening could be more specific and interesting, and that the introduction could be spiced up more. She also questions his statement, high school is the place where cliques and groups are most common. She thinks groups outside of high school are just as common as groups in high school.
So the opening of Nathan's paper needs some work. Let's talk about openings for a second. You want your opening to do 2 things.
You want your opening to get your reader interested in the subject of your paper and to show the reader the focus of your paper. You use the rest of the opening to develop your focus for the paper and lead into the thesis.
Now, there's no exact way to begin a paper. As we said at the beginning of the program, it depends upon the field of study you're writing for and what the assignment asks. But there are some methods you can use.
Excuse me, Professor. I'm having a little bit of trouble with my opening. It's kind of dull. And,
Come on, kid. Your opening needs to take your reader in. There's lots of ways to do it. Tell them an anecdote. Ask them a question. Give them a direct quotation, a definition, a description. I don't care. Whatever you think works. But you need to wow them. Slam, bang, they won't know what hit them. First with a right. First with a right, then a left. Wham! Wham!
Okay,
wham!
Nail 'em! I'll be going
Wham!
now.
Wham!
Let's look at some of the different kinds of openings you can use.
The major ones are an anecdote, a question, a direct quotation, a definition, or a description. There are other openings, but we'll focus on these 5. Just like a deer hypnotized by headlights, you want your opening to make your reader unable to move until he or she finishes reading your writing. The opening gets your reader interested and lets them know what your paper is about.
Now let's look at each of these types of openings a bit. First, the anecdote. An anecdotal opening is a very short story that relates to the topic of your paper. You can captivate your reader and make them want to read more of your writing.
For example, Nathan might relate a powerful story about someone who was excluded in high school, leading him or her to some dramatic action.
Oh my God, Terry, you're so handsome.
Using a question is another way to force your reader to get involved in your paper. It's hard not to at least think about a question when it's posed to you, right? Here's a good way to use a question. Ask your readers a question, then don't give them an answer right away. If you dangle that carrot in front of your reader, then you'll make them want to keep reading for an answer. It drives them crazy. Nathan might ask something like, ever wonder what clique you fit into in high school? Or some other such question. I was a dork.
A third type of opening is a direct quotation. A well-chosen direct quotation of someone else's words shows your reader that you've researched your subject well and can make your reader think about your topic in a new way. It'll make your reader want to read on to see what you have to say about that quote. Nathan might pick a quote from a movie about cliques in high school or a psychologist commenting on adolescent behavior.
So we've looked at opening with an anecdote, a question, and a direct quotation. Now let's check out opening with a definition.
Beginning your paper with a definition can also be effective. Sometimes you may have to begin with a definition because your reader may be unsure of your topic or how you're approaching it. Nathan could start off with a definition of cliques.